Today we're having a webinar and we're talking about the inner game of prospecting, how to overcome sales call reluctance. Now what we mean by a sales call reluctance, we will deal with that in a short while from now. But why is this webinar so important? Well, prospecting, as you know, is a core competency for salespeople. However, many salespeople and recruiters, both veterans and rookies, struggle with prospecting. They struggle with confidence and they struggle with consistency. If these are your problems today, or if these are problems which your team faces, then you are in the right place today. Today you will learn a few powerful skills to become proactive as new business developers. So to help us on this learning, to help us understand what sales calls reluctance is all about and how we can fix it, we have today Connie Kadansky, and she is the president of Exceptional Sales Performance. So Exceptional Sales Performance is an international training and coaching practice, and Connie is a recognized expert in identifying and eliminating sales call reluctance. I met Connie at a conference in Las Vegas where she was a keynote speaker, and she was talking about the importance of optimism. And well, did she leave me optimistic that day? Connie, welcome aboard, and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you too, Clinton.
And the voice that you're hearing right now is me, Clinton Rosario. I'm a product manager here at eGrabber Inc. Been here for 10 plus years. Launched quite a few products, spoke to dozens of customers, not dozens, dozens of hundreds of customers, and glad to be here on this webinar today. And before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. In case you need to follow us on Twitter, you will see on your screen right now a few Twitter handles, and you can tweet to us, tell us what you like, tell us what you didn't like, ask us a few more questions if you like, and there's good information available there. What's more, if you need to ask us questions, we will be having a live Q&A session at the end of this hour, 5 or 10 minutes towards the end. So ask your interesting questions as things go along. Don't wait for the end. If you think something's interesting, type it into your GoToMeeting box and we will take it. If it's very relevant, if it's an issue which is going to affect a lot of people, we will ask the question right then. If not, we will take it at the end of the webinar. If we don't answer it at the end of the webinar, rest assured we will get back to you. And I appreciate that you do not press the raise your hand button, which is a different button on your GoToWebinar chat box. But you see that questions log over there. Yeah, type it in there and hit a question and hit send, and we will get it. That said, I'm going to turn you over to Connie, and Connie will take over the presentation. So wait a moment while I switch presenter slides, and you will see Connie's screen in a moment. Connie, the stage is all yours.
Well, thank you so much, and I am so excited to be invited to speak today. In today's ever-changing business world, the sellers are now the key differentiator. It's not your product, it's not your service, it's you. And thinking about how you are showing up differently and more unique. And in our culture, it's not the hardest working or the best prepared or the smartest people who are getting the business. It is the people who are most willing, that's the operative word there, to prospect and self-promote. And so your mindset around selling and prospecting is which will really make the biggest difference for you. So if you're okay with it, is it okay if I share a little bit about myself so you can decide why you should really listen to me? So I'm going to take that as a yes. Well, in 1997, I was actually taking a nap at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because I was experiencing sales call reluctance. And I didn't know what it was. I was motivated. I was goal-oriented. And I did a search on the Internet, and I found the world's best-selling business book, The Psychology of Sales Call Reluctance by George Dudley and Shannon Goodson. And I read that book. and I was frustrated after I read it, but I was also relieved because I knew I was experiencing sales call reluctance. I flew to Dallas and I went through a workshop, the Fear-Free Prospecting Workshop, and I coached with Shannon Goodson, one of the behavioral scientists, for 10 weeks. And at the end of those 10 weeks, she said, Connie, you really get this. And I became a licensee for them. So for the last 15 years, I've been throughout the world training and coaching salespeople, financial advisors, insurance, recruiters, staffing. I had just received an invitation yesterday to speak in Turkey in 2015 at a real estate convention. So with that said, that tells you a little bit about me. So the teacher teaches what the teacher needs to learn. I'm here because I've experienced the call reluctance at different levels of intensity, and I love training this. So let's talk about what is really required for salespeople to become excellent. Mindset is first and foremost. There are two different kinds of mindset, an open mindset or a fixed mindset, and you all have your particular mindset. And what is mindset is just your set of beliefs. And why is it so important to look at that? Because our beliefs influence our entire life. So I coach salespeople and recruiters that prospect throughout the United States, and I know we have some international guests here today. And one of the things is, oh man, every time I call to the East Coast and they have a particular belief around people on the East Coast. And it's like, is that serving you? So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about mindset. And then process. Process is vital. People who have trouble closing the sale usually do not have a process that they are adhering to. If they have one, they're deviating. And then to skillfully execute, because we're all about skillfully executing and becoming masters, becoming excellent at what we do. So that is really the key to improving sales performance. So yes, you are the key differentiator. And what is it that you are doing to highlight what makes you unique, your unique value proposition, your credibility, because that's what our prospects expect us to do. They want to know, who are you and what makes you credible? Why should I listen to you? And if you're not clear there, you need a coach. You need to really work on that, because that's your responsibility to bring that up, yes? Okay, so you didn't join this webinar today to hear something you've already heard before. So I'm going to share a mindset that I truly believe that if you can choose to adopt it, your prospecting will take on a whole new light. And I had my illustrator draw this hornet's nest because it may challenge some of you. It may offend some of you. And here it is. You ready for it? That you are a professional lead generator who happens to sell whatever you sell. You're a professional lead generator who happens to sell real estate, who happens to sell insurance, who happens to sell software. Now, when you take on that mindset, it becomes more of an adventure because so many people struggle. I was talking to a seasoned producer yesterday, and he is struggling with prospecting. And he always struggled with it, but he matriculated up into a management position where he didn't have to prospect. And then he's out on his own again. And he said, it's miserable. Okay, so that's a mindset. So what is it? That you're a professional lead generator who happens to sell what you sell. And it doesn't diminish your credibility. It doesn't diminish what you do. So with that said, Clinton, will you go ahead and launch the first poll, and let's get an idea of how you feel about the mindset that I just recommended.
The poll is on right now, and it'll be there for the next 15 seconds. Go ahead and click one of those options. I see the votes coming in. I'll be closing the poll in a few seconds right now. And I'm doing that now. Okay, so I'm going to share the results right now. And if you see, Connie, there are 38% of the vote bank who agree with it, and they agree to work on shifting their mindset. So you have a good chunk of people, close to 40% of people want to change their mindsets.
And okay, well, that's good to know.
And the next big chunk says they will ponder on it. So you have a big slice of their time. 35% of people says they will ponder on it. So you have a chance to convert them to get them over to the other side. And oh,
okay,
by the way, 21%
yeah.
said they love it. So let me not forget that.
Okay, well, I appreciate it because what you're telling me is you have an open mindset. You're open to considering that you're a professional lead generator who happens to sell what you sell. So very good. So moving on now is that I'm not here to pull any rabbits out of the hat and teach you tricks. I stand on a very solid platform of behavioral science. So what I'm sharing with you today is backed up by behavioral science and biological cellular research. So you can depend on that. So let's just talk about visibility management, because that's really what it is when you're prospecting. You are managing your visibility in your marketplace. And how well are you managing your visibility? When I started, I talked about self-promotion, and self-promotion is putting yourself out there in your marketplace. There are 3 critical behaviors of people who are very effective at managing their visibility. And number 1, they know how to position themselves to get noticed. Secondly, they have a style that their prospect remembers. And third, they show up consistently. So the question around positioning is, who can you see or call today who can make a difference in what you earn? Learning and capitalizing and building your existing clientele, using your existing clientele, but always looking to develop new prospects on a consistent basis every day. And then the style is, what is there about your style that makes you memorable? And with all the social media now, we have so much more opportunity to create a style. And what is it that is making you memorable? So when you reach out to on LinkedIn or something like that, what is it so that people will remember you? And then third is that consistently showing up. Wow, is that so vitally important? So the 2 behavioral scientists that I worked with, they took a poll of 4,700 salespeople last year, because they wanted to know, what is this social media, how is it affecting the prospecting? And it's affecting it in a very positive way, because we're learning how to, and we're able to identify people quicker, have more information. However, when it comes to using social media as a prospecting tool, well, 70.8% of 4,700 salespeople said that they are still consistently getting the best results from their prospecting activity, their best business development results from their prospecting activity. Now let's look at this, and talking about consistency here. Now this comes from the Sales Association, Sales Executive Association. When you look at the screen here, 2% are only made after the first attempt. So I know that you can read the screen. 80% of sales are made on the 5th attempt. So those of you that are giving up a little bit too soon, what are you looking at there? How important is that? Now, here's the statistic. 46% of reps give up after first, 22 the second, 14 never get past the 3rd try. That's 82%. Now, what's the good news there? What is the good news for all the high achievers that are on the call here today? Is there anybody Clinton, why is that good news? Is there anybody that wants to enter into the Q&A? Why is that good news for you? Well, I'll go ahead and answer it, unless somebody's answering it, Clinton.
Yeah, I have one answer. 18% chance to make a difference, persistent counts. Yeah, they're agreeing with you. Yes.
Yes, so most salespeople are not following through. So you are the one that is going to follow through, and you are the one that is going to make the sell, right? So your competitors, the majority of your competitors are hit and miss, and they're often running, and they're not staying consistent and staying visible with their prospects.
Yeah, Paul, Connie, Paul and Lace agree with that. They say less competition is good.
Less competition is good. Solid platform for top sales performance is number one. We talked about it. Visibility, visibility, visibility. Number two is your credibility. Are you worthy of their confidence? Do you have a strong credibility statement? And if you're working with a company, you can use the credibility of that company, and then to have a laser-sharp, unique value proposition. And here it is. It needs to be as unique as your fingerprint. Nobody else out there can say it. Now, for some people, that is really difficult for them. But when you really do your homework, you can find out what makes you unique, because there is something that is making you unique, just as unique as your fingerprint, and it takes a little work for some of you. So how do you know if you're call reluctant? Well, it shows up two places. Guess what? The first place, in your wallet. Look in your wallet today. How much money is in there? Oh, that's an indication of your call reluctance. It shows up in your pocket, but first in your bank account, and then it also shows up in your appointment calendar. So how excited are you at looking at your calendars in the next 10 days? So that's where it shows up first and foremost, in our checking account and in our appointment calendar. So it's all about conversations, isn't it? So we can use social media, and I love it. I've got my own LinkedIn coach, etc., working the LinkedIn process. However, at the end of the day, it comes down to a conversation. We do have conversations. So let's look at a basic sales model here. And you know what, before we do that, I want to establish some, hold on, let me just do this. I'm a little ahead of myself. So let's look at a basic sales model, because as you know, eGrabber is sponsoring this webinar, and Clinton is going to share with us, and there will be an offer at the end that I am offering forward, and also Clinton, around my services and his services. So just know that that will happen. And Clinton is also going to share with us about 5 minutes on what eGrabber is all about. So let's look at the basic sales model. So we identify prospects so that we can initiate contact with them, so that we can introduce ourselves, our product, our service, our value proposition, so that we can have that all coveted sales presentation conversation, and so that you can influence them to buy from you. So looking at that basic sales model, and when people come to me for coaching, some of them are not clear on that prospect. And that's where a coach can really help you get crystal clear. I'm working with a couple attorneys right now, and we're really working on identifying exactly who their prospect is, so that they can reach out and initiate contact with them, right? And so now what we're going to do is Clinton is going to share with us about the eGrabber tools that are going to help you build your list, your prospect list. So go ahead, Clinton, take it away.
Thank you, Connie, and hang on while I change my screen right here. So here's just about 5 minutes about a prospecting thing that you can use, prospecting tools that we make that are useful to get across and start those conversations. Because if you're starting conversations, most probably you will be finding people on LinkedIn, because that's the That's the most common place to find prospects nowadays. Decision makers are there. You can find whole organizations over there. You can find the superiors, subordinates, everybody over there. So if LinkedIn is your place for prospecting, and you're starting from here, typically you would do what? You would send a connection request to people and you would wait for them to respond. Well, guess what? LinkedIn, if you see, most people connect it with their personal email address. Well, that's good because they want to keep their LinkedIn account when they move from company to company. They don't want to tie it with their business email address. So whatever connection request, whatever email you end up sending to people, it lands up in their personal inbox, which is good, but guess what? During the day, where does your focus primarily go? Is it your personal inbox or your business inbox? So think about that for a second. So if you're an executive, if you're a busy person, if you're someone who somebody wants to sell to, you are going to be focused on your business email for most part of the day. Besides the phone, yeah, you can get in touch with them on the phone. If you reach voicemails, there's another great way of handling voicemails. But typically, you go with 2, 3, 4 touches. You go on the LinkedIn, you go on the business email, you go on the phone. On a LinkedIn profile, you don't get an email address on the phone, so that's a big problem. And let's imagine this: if you send an email typically costs you $10 a piece. If you're paying that much for email. If you send an email and no one responds, guess what? You don't get that email credit back. That's a new policy of LinkedIn, by the way. You don't get that $10 email back in case they don't respond. That's changing in January. Okay. Besides that, if your LinkedIn profile says Sales Development Manager and you send a connection request to Chris, he might say, "Hey, Sales Development Manager, I really don't want to talk to him. I might just ignore his request." Or worst case, he might just say, "I don't know." And that's even worse, because if you get 3 I don't knows, 3 people saying "I don't know you," LinkedIn is going to block your account. Okay, ask me. It's happened to me. So prospecting from this stage is typically a problem for most sales professionals. So we've been in business for the past 16, 17 years. We've been in software. So we looked at salespeople and said, okay, what can we do to help salespeople who want to prospect but can't get to the business email address? So we created a software. We call it the Account Researcher software. And you click that Account Researcher button and you get an email address of this person. And it's a business email address. Now, how do we get that? I'll tell you in a minute or two. But now how can you use this? Well, you can use this to prospect people who you're not connected to, who may not accept your connection requests. Or let's assume the person is too busy and he just can't look at their LinkedIn. So getting in front of their business email address is a very useful thing. If you like to go old school and send a prospecting message by perhaps direct mail, and I hear that's catching back on nowadays, you need a business address. So this tool can also fetch a business address for you very quickly. You can click a button and get all this information very quickly. And let's assume you're a recruiter and you're looking for, let's say, digital strategy and e-commerce experts. Here's another person. Here's Diane. You might be tempted to send Diane a job offer on LinkedIn, but what if she doesn't see it? What if she doesn't see it till the weekend, till you're off, and then you go into a tag me kind of scenario? You send her email, she sends you email, you don't get in touch. What if you miss that opportunity? Well, here's an easy way to do it. Take a business email address. Maybe not send a job offer. Maybe send a white paper. On e-commerce, saying, "Hey Diane, I noticed you're a white paper expert. So here's you're an e-commerce expert. So here's a white paper which I thought you might find interesting." Get in touch with them, maybe exchange phone numbers, and you could go on from there. So the business email is very useful if you're a recruiter. Here's another case. Let's say if you're prospecting Kevin over here, and Kevin's not responding to your email address. Maybe Kevin's too busy. Guess what? Wouldn't you like a bunch of email addresses of Kevin's colleagues? Send an email to Chris, Christina, all the other people, and say, "Hey, I'm looking to get in touch with whoever at Terapeak who's in charge of XYZ, can you point me in the right direction? And guess what? Kevin might respond to their email, or you might get forwarded to somebody who does respond in that company. So various ways you can use a business email address to prospect, and that can be done very easily from an account researcher. Okay. So what is the account researcher? Well, it's a tool. You can enter a name and company, and it will find a business email address. Heck, even if you have an Excel sheet with which you might have purchased a list from somewhere and you don't have an email address, or you got that Excel sheet from a friend or a conference and you don't have an email address, that you can put that name and company into the tool and get a business email address. If you have some old contacts at a company and you know what, the business development director might have changed right now. I know the company name, I know I can sell to them, but I don't know the current person's name. You can type that into the account researcher tool as well, and the tool will find the current person and the current contact information of that person. Okay. Now you might be wondering, where does the account researcher tool get all this contact information? Well, we get it from the internet. We get it from the free internet, the free web, whatever's out there on Google. We know the places on Google where you can find all this information, and this tool, what it does the work of an expert internet researcher. So imagine having a very intelligent assistant with you. You enter a name and company, press a button, and the research assistant goes out there in seconds, in 60 seconds, 30 seconds, it finds all that information and brings it to you. Shows you the document from where it got that email address and a phone number. Now, how is that? And if it can't find the email address, it'll find colleagues' email addresses, so perhaps you can send them an email as well and say, point me in the right direction. Now, how good is the software? Well, it's pretty good, it's pretty accurate, and just to prove it, well, we got a patent on the whole thing, so we know it works, okay? And when you're done with all this thing, press another button, it goes into your CRM, into your Salesforce, one click, it just makes the whole thing very easy. That said, in case you like a demo of how the software would work for you, okay, you can message me, email me at clinton@egrabber.com, or leave me a chat message on GoToMeeting, and I'll follow up with you, and you can have an appointment, and we'll show you how it works for you. Okay. By the way, there's an offer which I have right at the end of the webinar, so you can wait for that. And in the meantime, it's back to Connie. Connie?
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that, because I know that more and more companies are hiring researchers. So thank you very much. It's pretty exciting. Now, the statistics and all the research shows that there's a high correlation between prospecting and sales success, that proactive prospecting and sales success. It's undeniable. The more people you talk to, the more people that you will sell. So let's talk about your daily metric. Will you go ahead and launch that poll, please, Clinton?
Yes, it's launching right now. So on your screen, it asks you, what is your daily metric that you strive to achieve? So how many conversations per day are you trying to achieve? Is it between 2 to 5 conversations per day, or more than 5, less than 10, or more than 10 and less than 20, or 20 plus conversations? I'm going to leave that up for about 20 seconds more. Go ahead and click any one of those buttons. Interesting. So I'm closing the poll right now, and I'm sharing the results. Connie, the majority of our audience today likes to have up to 10 conversations per day. That's a 42%. That's about half the crowd.
Yes, and that is so interesting, because that really is the metric that in most industries, if people are having 10 conversations a day, they are achieving their goals. And accountability and tracking is so vital. And many people that are solopreneurs, independent salespeople have a lot of struggle with that accountability. And then I know in working with a lot of executive recruiter firms, that's really built in, and that's why they do so well in keeping people on track for their daily metrics. So, what's your favorite excuse for not proactive prospecting consistently, proactively prospecting consistently? So this is our third out of our fourth poll, so go ahead and launch that poll. Share with us your favorite excuse for not prospecting.
And that poll is up right now and will be there for another 15 seconds. I forgot to add, I didn't get my coffee in the morning. Huh. Okay. Thank you for voting. I'm going to close that poll right now. And I'm going to share the results. Oh, wow, we have a tie. I have too many other things to do. That's 30% of the crowd. That's about a third. And the other third comes from, I do not have enough prospects to call.
Good to notice. Good, good, good. So those are the people that really need to work on identifying and looking at that eGrabber tool so that you can really get the prospects for them to call.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
Connie, there's something else you might want to know. About 23% of our audience feels they experience the fear of rejection. And I can understand that because I did some prospecting myself. I continue to do it. And that is something that runs in the back of the mind. What if people say no? So would love if you can answer that. And the first one which says, I have too many other things to do.
Okay, good. Well, the people that are experiencing the fear of rejection, you are at the right place today because that's what this inner game of prospecting is all about, helping you really overcome that perception that you're being rejected when you're making the prospecting calls. So successful salespeople experience pain. I can tell you that that is so true. Now let's talk about the two pains. You're free to choose the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. So yes, it takes discipline, and the more you discipline yourself, the more people you talk to, the more you develop your skills, the more you master your whole process, the more money you're going to make, right? So which one do you want to choose, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret, which we all know? So yes, our prospects are busy. You're busy. Think about your life. And we have an opportunity to tap into their world. And what did I share earlier? The statistic, it takes 5 taps into their world to make a sale. And it's our responsibility as salespeople with our creativity and our value to be able to convey that value. Now here is a tidbit that is so significant, I should call it something bigger. Most salespeople are prospecting and say, I do this, I do that, we do this, we do that. Here's what I'm suggesting that you do, is to say, companies rely on us too. So companies rely on me to help their salespeople get their ask in gear and get consistent with their prospecting. Companies rely on eGrabber to provide them information quickly. And so whatever you do, start verbalizing and articulating that opposed to, I help people do this and this, right? Make it more customer-centric. So that's a tip there. Now, here's the official definition for call reluctance. It's that emotional hesitation to initiate contact. So you're ready to pick up that phone and punch in that number, and you stop, and you check who won the game last night. You find out how your stock is doing. You look on whatever to try to distract yourself. That's called reluctance. So when you're reaching for the phone and you hesitate, what is it that is causing you to hesitate? So that's what we're going to really get into here. So there are two ways to view prospecting. Mindset, right? Are you experiencing it as an opportunity? And look at the opportunity can go in so many different directions. It's an opportunity to find out whether they're qualified. It's an opportunity to find out if they'll open up to you, right? The opportunities are out there. The opportunities are totally out there. What is our perception of the opportunity? Maybe it's learning some competitive intelligence. Maybe it's learning that somebody had some personal tragedy in their family and they're just not able to talk to us now. Maybe it's an opportunity to find out we really don't want to be working with them, right? But that's one way, or the other way is we can view it as an emotional threat to us. Now, I prospect, and I know that there are some calls that I make, and people are not happy. They're not, but you know what? Here's the key. When you call somebody that is not happy that you call them, and they're less than courteous, is in that very moment you have an opportunity to develop your emotional intelligence, to increase your emotional intelligence. And what you do at that moment, so oftentimes when we call somebody and they are less than pleasant and say something that is not very professional, and I know it happens to you because I coach salespeople all the time and I make my own calls, is at that moment, usually we go down the self-doubt spiral. And we say, well, I'm going to take it personally, and that means that I'm not good at this. That means that my product or service is not welcome. Here's what I'm going to encourage you to do, is you get to say at that particular time to yourself, what am I making it mean? What am I making it mean? This person just hung up on me and told me to take them off their list. What am I making it mean? Wow. Significant tip that I just gave you there. And I'm going to come back to that early on. So yes, when you're proactive, you're not going to call everybody that's going to be welcome to your call. But when you know your value, you practice your value statement, you're going to be so much more confident at delivering what it is that your value. So there's 4 steps to eliminate call reluctance. Number 1 is to be aware of it. Just be aware of it. I'm not making enough calls. I'm not as consistent. Number 2 is to assess. Now, there's a free assessment, and if you want that free assessment, I'm going to give you my email address, and I'll send it to you. And then I'm also going to talk about an assessment that you can make a financial investment in that can be profoundly valuable to you. And then number 3 is to admit. And oh, our ego doesn't like to, but you know what? Sometimes this can be the most difficult, is to admit. Now, I know we have many recruiters and staffing people on the phone today. Admit that you're call reluctant. Admit that you have fear when you're calling into a passive candidate that you talked to 2 years ago that really wasn't very pleasant to you. Admit that you're feeling it, you know. And I'm going to share with you another big tidbit. Anytime you're experiencing anxiety, you know, I'm fearful about calling this person because last time I did XYZ, right, is to say I am experiencing anxiety. I'm experiencing anxiety about calling passive candidates that are engineers and I don't know anything about engineering. I'm experiencing the anxiety. It's okay. You're not denying it. You're not pretending. But you are also distancing yourself from the fear and the anxiety. That's a profound transformational tip that I just gave you. Anytime you're saying, I am, it needs to be followed by a positive. I am confident. Okay, great. I am disappointed. No, I am experiencing disappointment. However, disappointment is not who I am. You're distancing yourself from that negative emotion. And I'm going to share with you that I promise very few of you know about, but why that is so important. Oh, I love teaching that. It gives people so much more emotional confidence, and they're not grasping onto the negative emotion that is very destructive. And then number 4, apply proven techniques to overcome the call reluctance. So here's the first thing for you to do. It's an infantile fantasy to believe that you can become confident at prospecting without doing some work. It takes work, and here's the first awareness. When you're ready to pick up the phone and you stop, immediately write down what is causing you to stop. Admit it to yourself. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to get through the gatekeeper. I don't know enough about engineering. Whatever it is, you need to bring it up, because people hide, deny, and suppress their fear that they never ask themselves, well, what exactly am I afraid of? But when you can identify it, wow, you will be in so much closer to overcoming the call reluctance. It will free you. So call reluctance is like being in a prison, a mental prison, or a cage. Your freedom from call reluctance, and we have different degrees of intensity of call reluctance, is in your willingness to identify what is it that is causing you to stop. What is that belief? What is that perception? What is that assumption? Is it your inner critic? But we've got to be able to identify that. That's why many people engage in short-term coaching. Now, there are 12 types of call reluctance. I'm not going to share all 12. I'm going to share 3, and you can go to my website and find out the other 12, or send me an email, and I will send you the 12 types of call reluctance. The ones that I'm going to highlight today are the ones that we see a lot that are very prominent, which is the overpreparer, the overanalyzer. So I gave an example earlier about, I don't know enough about engineering to call this engineer. Well, it's really not about that, right? It's about we get too caught up in wanting more information, and the information and the research becomes our crutch. Anybody out there relating to that overthinker? Usually those over-preparers do not have the same call volume or prospecting volume that the non-over-preparer has. Now, the second type of call reluctance, and the most costly, is the yielder call reluctance. It's the Mr. Nice Guy and the Miss People Pleaser, and they want to be liked. They want to be approved of. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. We all like that, don't we? When people like us, approve us, but this yielder behavior is where people get too upset when somebody is not engaging with them, and so they give up. They let people off the hook. They're not as assertive in knowing their value and conveying their value. So where does that yielder behavior show up in prospecting? When somebody says, well, I'm not interested. Okay, what have you been taught? I call them pattern interrupts. You're interrupting their pattern. Now, prospects have a reflexive no. And you know how I know this is true? A friend of mine told me that she had a funeral to go to, and she needed a suit bad. She had a limited time. She ran into a store, and the store attendant said, may I help you? And she goes, no. She said, I needed help more than anybody in that store that day, and my reflex was no. And she caught herself. Now, many of our prospects have that same reflexive no. So what can you do to get the no out of the way? I always say, I didn't catch you at a bad time, did I? No. Or, yes, but what are you calling about, right? And so the yielder behavior are people that don't hang in there in order to engage somebody. Now, pattern interrupts, that could be a completely different webinar. And if you have some comments on that or questions, you can email me and I'll send you some information on how to interrupt people when they're saying no. I'm not interested. And where you ask a question that interrupts that pattern and takes them to a different place. So if I said to you, I'm talking along and I say, by the way, what city were you born in? Okay, I interrupted the pattern, seemed a little strange, but now I have you thinking in a different way, and then you interrupted that reflexive no. So that was just an example that I threw out there. You wouldn't say that to a prospect, but you could have, by the way, what have you done this year to XYZ improve, right? Is that making sense? Clinton, let me know if it's making sense.
No problem. Making perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay, good. And then telephobia, call reluctance is, now there are 12 types. This is one type, and guess what? This is the easiest to overcome. If somebody has telephobia, I overcame it in one morning in my office. If it's just the telephone that is keeping you from making your calls. Okay, so let's get into a technique for overcoming call reluctance. And to really understand it, we need to understand the core of behavioral science. And this is proven over and over again. Whatever you think triggers a feeling which alters your action. So for example, the seasoned producer that called me yesterday because he's not making his calls because he thinks that they're miserable. The minute he thinks they're miserable, it triggers a feeling of anxiety and it alters his action so he doesn't make the call, right? And so it's really looking at what your mindset is around prospecting. So people say, can you make me love prospecting? Well, I can tell you over time, yes. However, what I can really do is help you neutralize the negative. You can meet your goals by just neutralizing the negative. So whatever you think triggers a feeling which alters your action. And it's a vicious circle. Now, over here at the right-hand side of the screen, what is a belief? All a belief is a thought you think over and over and over again. And whatever you believe, you will create situations to validate that belief. That's the most important thing I can ever say to anybody. Whatever you believe, you will create situations to validate that belief. So if you believe that cold calling doesn't work anymore, it's not going to work for you. I call it making highly targeted prospecting calls, and I promise you that making highly targeted prospecting calls works. It's working for millions of salespeople. And so mindset is how I started out today, right? So our mindset is our set of beliefs that become our filter, which we interpret our life and our experience and our business. So do we have a little bit of distorted beliefs once in a while? Yes, they do, and they cost us our confidence and they cost us sales. Because whatever we believe creates an expectation. So if I believe and if I have an expectation that everywhere I go I get business, it becomes my experience. Been doing this for 15 years. I know this and I continue to study it. And that's where coaching comes in, big time. There's a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. I highly recommend you get that book. It will really, really help you look at what is your current belief that is keeping you from being more successful. So what's attitude? Attitude is a sum total of your belief, and whatever your attitude is becomes your experience. And if you believe that you are good at engaging people, it becomes your experience. I was talking to a recruiter this morning. It's been 15 years, and he's using this assessment to hire a researcher. And his attitude is, I am really good at engaging people. And you know what? That's his reality. Isn't that fun? Is that fun or what? So let's look at that fear of rejection, where 23% of you said that that is really what keeps you from prospecting. Fear of rejection is just a negative interpretation. That's all it is. So if somebody says no, we can certainly choose to feel as it is a rejection, which throws us into negative emotion, negative behavior, and negative results. So if somebody says no, I'm going to throw out another perception. They just released me to work with somebody else. They just released me to work with somebody else. Or I caught them at a bad time. Or I'm going to send them something that shows the value of what we provide. It becomes an adventure, a challenge, versus a negative interpretation. I hope you love this as much as I do, because it makes such a big difference. Okay, so what's blocking success? Number one, limited beliefs. And how do we know we have limited beliefs? We look at our results. Assumptions and experience plus emotion. I had a bad experience one time when I called XYZ, and I didn't feel good. So if I call them again, I'm going to assume that that's going to be the same unpleasant experience. Wow, that's blocking our success. Perceptions and interpretations. That's why I said, when you have a particular disappointing experience, to be able to say, what am I making it mean? What am I making it mean? Because we're meaning-making machines. I'm making it mean that I'm not worthy. I'm making it mean that I don't have value. Wow. What a heads up there. And the inner critic, and I'm finding that that inner critic sometimes is just a little lie whisper that says, who do you think you are, calling somebody who XYZ? By the way, I'm going to be interviewing somebody who sold to Donald Trump on my Blog Talk radio show. And when he first went in to present, Donald Trump tried to just, no, I'm not doing your presentation. I'm not listening to it. And the guy said, sit down, and you are going to listen to it. Wow. Next week I'm going to be interviewing him. If you want to listen, let me know. So that inner critic is usually mean and destructive, and it can be, and that's our internal saboteur that is really saying stuff to us that is not helping us, right? So that's where good coaching get to the nitty-gritty there. So these are some of the things that I've heard a lot in the years about what keep people from prospecting. You know, when they go to pick up the phone, what if I mess up? They'll think I'm trying to sell them something. You are. It's okay. Finding and identifying and solving people's problems for a profit, that's what selling is. Oh, they've all been called by 11 recruiters today. I hear that a lot. Oh, I'm projecting that they've already been called. Well, you know, so that keeps us from prospecting, right? I'll blow the contact. I only have a finite number, and if I blow it, wow, I'm going to blow it, okay? Those internal blocks, that internal dialogue that's just habitually happening that we're not moving forward. They'll be upset. That's what throws us down the self-doubt spiral. If anybody's doubting themselves today, one of those four things have thrown you down the self-doubt spiral. It's not that prospect. It's those four things, the beliefs, assumptions, perceptions, etc. Unresolved issues with call reluctance don't get better. I've seen people over the years try to do it. It gets worse, and people actually, they crash. And then instead of seeing a coach, they're seeing a psychologist. Unfortunately, the psychologist gives them a pill, and they're in a real challenging. So neutralize the negative. Now I'm looking at the clock. I'm seeing that we're going to be closing up here. And in closing, I'm going to share with you that something that most people do not know, and the significance. Just because people don't know about gravity does not mean that gravity will not affect them, right? The hypothalamus is the chemical factory in your brain. Every thought you think, your hypothalamus secretes hormones to match the thought you're thinking, what you're focusing on. And it secretes throughout your entire body. So is it important for us to learn the skill of shifting our perception, shifting what it is that we are choosing to think about? And if people don't take control, the body actually starts thinking for the person. Have you ever met somebody who is just downright cranky? They have focused and that their body is actually thinking for them. And so that is why it's so important for us to learn those emotional skills to interrupt the patterns of thought that are creating and causing negativity. Now, it sounds like I'm promoting positive thinking, doesn't it? Positive thinking in of itself is worthless. It needs to have a positive feeling that goes with it. So when I was saying earlier, somebody had a disappointment. I'm disappointed that that placement didn't go through. I am experiencing disappointment, but you're not having that hypothalamus pump out hormones that match disappointment. The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about this, so I am simplifying it today. So how important is it that we learn the skills? And the better you feel, the brighter your future. The better you feel, the richer you'll be. The better you feel, the more your dynamic, brilliant tone comes through your prospecting. I could talk a lot more on that, but we've got a time. So what's going on upstairs? I can, I will, I choose. Or I can't, I have to, I'll try. Okay, so think about it. The hypothalamus secretes chemicals, hormones from everything you focus on. So you want to get better at prospecting. 60 seconds a day, ponder on this question. What would it be like to be at ease with prospecting? Take a deep breath. Your hypothalamus is pumping out completely different chemicals, and your patterns of thought are changing. What would it be like? That's a brilliant question to ask yourself. What would it be like to be at ease with prospecting? So it's all going to work out. Everybody has something that they're thinking about here today. It's all going to work out. Wow, your hypothalamus is pumping out completely different hormones than, oh my gosh, I'm worried. I am so worried, right? And today's the most exciting day of my life. What would happen if every morning you woke up, today's the most exciting day of my life. Wow, your hypothalamus is going, I like it, I like it. And guess what? Whatever you think about, you bring about. Whatever you focus on, you get more of. So that is also behavioral scientifically proven and through your cellular biology. So here's the definition for confidence. Everybody on this call today wants more. It is your ability to transform your fear of different levels of fear around your prospecting into focus-related thinking, communication, and action, and that's that internal communication. You like it, that internal communication. Now, I'm going to give you something for the end of the day routine. And I know I'm going a little bit over, but you hang in here. I promise it's going to be valuable to you. So at the end of the day, you want to develop mastery, correct? sit down and write down 3 things that went well for you. 3. Wow, your hypothalamus is just loving it. 3 things, and then choose one thing that didn't go the way you wanted it to go, or one communication that you didn't handle it the way you would have liked to. You reenact it in your mind the way that you would have liked to have shown up. You will start transforming your behavior. Salespeople tell me, I have 25 years of experience. Do you have 25 years of experience, or do you have 1 year 25 times? That last piece of suggested recommendation is probably one of the most powerful things that I can tell people. And I know I'm so proud of what I'm telling you because I know it works. Okay, with that said, before that Clinton's going to come on and talk about the offers, go ahead and, Clinton, will you launch that last poll?
Yes, it's up, and tell us how you like the content of this webinar. Exceptional, moderately valuable, or minimally valuable, and I like the exceptional part. You know, Connie, I can relate to a lot of the things that you said on the webinar, because I had a friend who started off as a sales guy, and I remember telling him, you are a really bad sales guy. And I regret telling him that, but he looked at me and said, you know what, I don't think I can do anything else in this world. I think sales is the only thing in the world that's meant for me. And a year later, 365 days later, he's topping the sales charts at his organization. And I was surprised. And all because he believed that sales was the thing for him, that he could do what he was doing, that he could get better at what he was doing.
Yes. Oh, I admire that. Yes. Okay, what's the poll? We're going to share the poll here.
Well, 53% said exceptionally valuable, 45% said moderately valuable. So those are your statistics.
And how many? Anybody minimally valuable?
2%.
2%. Okay, we'll go with that. Okay, well, good. So now, this is any time of speaking or training events, like I say, I travel around the country, and you can take my email address down. Anything I promised you that you want, email me today. It might not get to you because I've got a busy schedule, but I will get that to you within the next 24 hours, anything I promised, and anytime you have a speaking or training event. So now, Clinton, go ahead and talk about the offer for the people that joined us today.
Yes, and the offer is quite simple. It's a combined eGrabber and exceptional sales performance offer that we have for you today. The account researcher tool that I talked about, the one tool which you can send an email to anybody as long as you have the name and the company, that tool comes for a flat fee of $895 a year usually. Oh, by the way, it doesn't charge per email. It's just a flat fee. You can use it for as many emails as you want in a year. That said, that is my contact information, clinton@egrabber.com, in case you need a personalized demo or you need to reach out to me, let me know. By the way, someone's asking for Connie's, and I'm going to flip over, and there you're seeing it on screen. That's it. We're quite over time. Thank you everybody for being on the call over time. There are a few questions, but I think we can handle them individually. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Connie. That was a fantastic webinar. I have a lot of learning from that as well. And I see a lot of thanks coming in from the crowd as well. That's it, folks. Look forward to the recording. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.